Once upon a time, there was a snail without a shell. How did that happen? All sorts of things happen. With our snail it was like this. When in childhood her brothers and sisters collected lime particles and sent them to their mouths, formed shells, worked on becoming strong and independent in the future, Snail said, "Lime is unpalatable, it makes me sad. I guess growing a shell is not for me." As she got older, Snail learned the word purpose, and from then on she always said, "I'm not meant to build a shell. I, so soft and fragile, am meant to be gentle." And the little one flattered Mama Snail, hid under her shell, pressed her vulnerable body against Mama's warm side. What about Mommy? She would talk, as all mothers do, but she would still warm her and say a kind word. True, and conflicts happened. It is cramped for two under one shell, especially since our snail grew. But then peace came again in the family. Mom's shell was reliable, and Snail's life was cloudless. And then came the time when Snail, her brothers and sisters grew up, and parents gently kicked them out of the house, for it was time to explore the world on their own. "I'm scared," Snail squeaked excitedly. "Mommy, can I stay with you and Daddy? I don't even have a shell." "You'll grow one, even if it's too late," said Mommy Snail sternly, and Father Snail supported her. Crawl in peace. Every living creature has a time to grow up, and those who miss this moment and settle down at the mother's shell, then 100 times worse happens. "You're welcome," squeezed her lips our Snail, "and I, maybe, do not want to grow a shell. It is not my purpose." Very, very clever and enlightened she felt herself when she said this word. "Without a shell I take everything closer to my heart. I can dissolve in any creature without a trace. I can realize myself in tenderness and love." And she proudly crawled away from her parents' yard, to fulfill her destiny. At first, everything in the world was interesting, and tight juicy stalks of grass, almost to the sky, and mushrooms with wet caps, on which it was great to climb, and the roots of trees. And then, somehow imperceptibly, the brothers and sisters spread out, everyone had his own way, and the rain began to drizzle. Oh, how good it would be now to dive under the mother's shell, to cuddle up to her warm belly. But this time the snail without shell had to escape from heavy cold drops under a burdock leaf, where she sat her first night in the big world. And in the morning the sun came out, dried up all the sniffling noses, and the snail without a shell, having had breakfast, encouraged herself, and set off again. It seemed to her that on such a wonderful sunny day, something extraordinary was going to happen in her life. And extraordinary things did happen. As the sun rose to its highest point, on a knoll under an old birch tree, the shell-less snail saw him. "It's him," was all our snail thought, and her heart froze and then beat fast and fast. Snail realized that she had not left her parents' house for nothing, for if she had not made up her mind to take this step, she would never have met her destiny. He was a snail boy, the same age as our heroine. He had cunning black eyes and a reliable amber-colored shell. The young ones became easy friends, and spent the day traveling together, exploring the big world. Snail had left his parents' home not so long ago, but he had already learned something about the green expanse around them, and had many interesting stories to tell. Snail listened and melted with tenderness. Snail felt it, and a warm wave of reciprocal tenderness rose in him for this funny, defenseless little thing. By nightfall, as it grew colder, Snail-less Snail began to freeze. "Let me under your shell," she asked her hero. "I can't stand a second night under the leaf. I'm too vulnerable, I'll die." Such words made the young snail's heart tremble. "You will not perish, my dear, as long as you have me," sincerely exclaimed he, and let his beloved under his shell. She clung blissfully to her prince, and murmured in his ear, "This is our common home now, is it not?" "Well, yes," answered Ulick, a little confused. He had never heard of two snails living under the same shell. But there was so much tenderness and warmth in his small, fragile friend, which she generously shared with him, that he finally decided, one shell is not such a bad idea. And so they lived under one shell. And they haven't been apart since. Especially if we take into account that Ulitochka did not like to get out from under their roof at all, and if she did it, then not for a long time. And then she stopped altogether. And at first they were cozy together, warming each other and enjoying each other. And then Snail felt cramped. And then he wanted at least one evening to be alone. And he hinted to his friend that she could at least leave his shell for a while. "But I'll die without you, darling," hugging her beloved with all her paws, objected Snail, "because the meaning of my life, to be with you all the time." "And mine?" asked Snail sadly. "Does my life have any meaning?" "Of course," exclaimed Snail without a shell, "to be my home and keep me warm. We are inextricably linked, my number one." And again Snail was warm and close, this way and that way, first more of the former, then more of the latter. And Ulitochka was probably also close, but she always lived under someone's warm side, first under her mother's side, now under the side of her beloved, and simply did not realize that it could be otherwise. Or maybe she was afraid to realize it, because this realization would require her to act independently, and no, it was better not to think of such a thing. That was not her purpose. But one day Yulich said, "I can't go on. I'm suffocating from the cramped quarters. Please go away and I'll go the other way." "But we have one world for both of us," sobbed the shell-less snail. "No," said Yulich, unaccustomedly stiff, "the world is freedom. It's what surrounds us, what I wanted to explore with you, and in the end you became my burden. I can't do that." "But I don't want to explore the world," sobbed even more bitterly. "I want to have our little world together, and dissolve in it." "Well, if you don't want to explore the world, build a little world with someone else," concluded Yulich. He felt infinitely guilty as he gently pushed the defenseless snail out from under his shell, but at the same time, when she was gone, he felt freed from her captivity. "I'm sorry," he said bitterly, and crawled away into the grass. The snail cried for 2 days, huddled under a plantain leaf, almost stiff. There she was found by an adult snail, much older than she was, but still very strong, handsome and polite. Word by word, they got acquainted. Snail fed the misbehaving snail, listened to her story and asked, "Why don't you grow a shell, you silly young creature? How much more interesting and independent your life will become immediately. After all, your shell is your sense of self. It is not only made of lime, but also of hobbies that are yours alone, and of your personal goals, and of respect and love for yourself. And no matter what happens, no matter who leaves you, if you have a shell, you will always have you, your beloved, yourself needed. And, therefore, in any case, you will not be lost." "Ah, understand, I was not born for this," sighed sadly Snail. "What were you born for?" Snail raised her eyes on her interlocutor on thin stalks. She hesitated for a second, and then rushed to him, climbed under his shell, hugged him with all her paws, snuggled. "That's what it's for. I was born to give love and affection. I have so much unspent heat in me, more than in the sun." "Well, the sun, it just spins, and thus acquires, and you, but like this, and so," tried to explain and resist Yulich. "And I will love you with all my heart, my savior," said Yulich heartily, "only let me stay under your shell. Ever since my parents pushed me out into the big hostile world, I've been doing nothing but dying of cold when I'm alone." Yulich realized, of course, that 2 in 1 shell was no life. But the defenseless snail, saved by him, spoke so sincerely and heartfelt, and he himself had recently lost his wife, on whom a heavy acorn had fallen, and he lacked closeness and warmth. In a word, they lived together. And, who would have doubted it, the story repeated itself, first the common world, coziness, cooing in his ear, then Snail became crowded, wanted to be alone, but small, almost transparent paws already held him very tightly. At first he coaxed her affectionately, then began to get angry, then realized that it was time to escape. Everyone betrays me, shook the transparent fist of the snail without a shell, watching her recent savior moving away from her, with an unusual speed for snails. Since then, the shellless snail has been disappointed in love and in men. What is it? You embrace them by their warm abdomen, dissolve in them, and they run away from you, and you are all dissolved. After each separation you know until a new warm abdomen crawls in and you find your meaning in it. Meaning. Strange word, thought our snail. I never thought of it before, but it seems to me that if I grasp what this meaning is, and settle it not in someone else, but under my shell, then I will be happy and never cold. But, oh, I don't even have a shell. And Snail began to collect grains of lime from the forest streams, from transparent water, and from the questions, who am I? Why am I? Why should I value myself by myself, separate from everyone, scary to say, independent? Of bits and pieces of my own self. That's how I built my shell. She finally built a shell. Hooray! And under the shell she had not only a fragile body, no longer defenseless, paws and two eyes on stalks, but also her personal, not depending on anyone, meaning. And then our snail now already with shell realized that the big world is safe and interesting, that there is a lot of wonderful things in it, and she did not see them from under other people's warm bellies, that it is not scary at night in the forest, and it is not scary in the rain. It has a strong shell. It can withstand everything. And under the shell there is a whole universe belonging only to her, the personal territory of the snail's soul. If you get under the roof, you are not bored with yourself. And when all this became clearer than clear to our snail, one fine, golden sunny day, she met a snail with a shell with red freckles, as if the sun had marked him. At first Yulatochka did not notice him. She was admiring the reflection of the sky in a dewdrop, and was waiting for the drop to come off a blade of grass to fill a teapot made from the head of a tiny flower and take a sip of morning tea. And then she was called. Oh, beautiful snail! Will you give me a moment? She turned around and saw Freckles. And she liked him at first sight. But she said, "Actually, I was going to have tea," but then she added, "Will you have a drink with me?" And they drank flower tea, their shells just touching. And then they started talking, who had been to which clearing, who had seen what, and, somehow imperceptibly, They got to the point that they should go together to a place where none of them had ever been. They talked from morning till sunset, because each of them had his own shell and his own experience, and they had something to share with each other. And as they got to know each other, they became more and more filled with mutual sympathy, and finally they both fell in love up to their horns. It would seem that not much time had passed, but how life had changed. Look, our snail and freckled snail are crawling side by side, talking affectionately, each carrying his own house. And behind them stretches a row of tiny snails, with still so thin, fragile, but already real, shells. Two big shell houses, and many small houses, and together, aha, the whole world, as Snail wanted, only better. A shared world, a world full of love, joy and meaning, the source of which is always in ourselves. Even if we are not snails. Come on, we are not so different from them, I'll tell you.